Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women, hosted by Embrace Her Legacy founder and CEO, Maria I. Melendez. Ladies, get ready to evoke your feminine confidence and be inspired to master your relationship with yourself so you can fabulously live your legacy. If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to visit us at embraceherlegacy.com, where you can support our mission by making a donation of any amount or sign up to become part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Our vision is for every woman and every girl to defeat her inner saboteur, master her relationship with self, and live out her legacy unapologetically. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women of color. And today we talking shmoney, shmoney. And I'm so excited to talk to my girl, Keishan Rowe, who is a financial coach, speaker, and educator at the_legacy_lady. So we're going to just talk about money, making sure we keeping our money right. And Keishan, really, so you know, I wanted to do this episode because 2020 has hit us on so many levels, but one level definitely is financially. Like, you know, it's been so many ebbing and flowing, ups and downs, such uncertainty around finances. And I just wanted to educate the woman out there on ways, you know, they can make sure that they're still thriving during these, you know, hard times. So introduce yourself, tell the people about you, who you are, what you do.
All right. So first of all, as always, thank you so much for extending this invitation to me. You know, I appreciate everything that you do in the community, especially for the Black and brown girls. I think an organization like yours is definitely needed, not only in this season, but just in general. So I appreciate the things that you're doing and the fact that you asked me to come on again to speak about money, you know, so I find it to be an honor. So thank you so much for that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Keishan Rowe. I am an accountant by profession for over 15 years. I know I don't look like I'm 15. I mean, been doing this for a while, but I've been doing this for about 15 years. I am a new mom, which I absolutely love. And in addition to that, I am a financial coach as well as a tax strategist. And I love pretty much getting people in tune to their finances. You know, I think it is extremely important. And like you said, in this day and age, the pandemic has really revealed who people are when it comes to their finances, right? So if you were playing games before the pandemic and you realize you don't have any savings, you don't have any money stored away for a rainy day, this pandemic has definitely revealed the essence of who you are when it comes to your finances. I'm excited for us to get down deep and dirty and talk about this topic of finances. So.
Love it. We gonna get into it. And Keishan don't play, honey. She will tell you like it is, not how it should be or might be. She's like, girl, you need to get it together. So let's talk about, let's jump right in. We gonna jump right in. We're gonna get right into it. So you said about saving, you hit a lot of points. Like, girl, if you wasn't saving before 2020, then you need to be saving, right? So, and in order to do that, you got to have that B word, a budget. So let's talk about let's start with saving first. What are the common mistakes that people make when it comes to saving their money or trying to save? Because Keishan, we polled our audience on Instagram, and 75% of our audience believes, 75% believes they're savers. 25% of our audience believes they're spenders. So you got to help that 25%. How do we start saving our money for a rainy day?
So I think the #1 thing is to, and you hit on it, is about really having a budget, right? So we don't like the B word, right? You know, we don't like that B word because there's a negative connotation associated with it, right? But in order for you to be aggressive in your savings, in order for you to put money away, you have to have a budget because you're not going to know how much money you actually have to put aside. So I would say create that budget, right? And one of the biggest mistakes that people make, as mentioned, is that they don't have a budget, so that it'll open up the doors for them to say, okay, I can actually save, you know, $250 a month as opposed to $100. So I think it's extremely important that people realize that, you know, the 25% that are out there, right? When you did the poll, that in order for them to be super aggressive with their savings, first they have to have a budget because it opens up the door for them to know specifically how much they can actually put aside. And then, so once they do that, I would say put it on automation, right? Whatever your savings goal is or the amount that you have, put it on automation so that every time that, you know, you get paid, $25, $50, $100 comes out of your paycheck automatically. So you're saving automatically. What happens is if you were to rely on yourself in real time to save, a lot of people won't do it. And it's surprising that you have a favorable number of 75% people are really saving, because when you really look deep down and look at the numbers, a lot of times people aren't doing it because they don't think they have enough to do so. So automate and budget. That's the key to it.
Now, you know, I'm going to follow up with some questions on that because you said automate, right? How would I go about automating? Is that like an app I can use? Is it something I can adjust on my bank account? How would I go about automating my savings?
Okay, so let's say in real time, you get your paycheck goes into your savings account, right? So let's say, for example, you have HSBC, right? Open up an online only savings account so that the money from your savings is linked to that online account. So your checking account. So you get paid today, your money goes into your account. You will link your online savings account to the account, which is your checking account where your paycheck is deposited. So every time you get paid, automatically, every 2 weeks when you get paid, automatically the money is coming out. So you connect the two accounts so that the money can come out automatically, right? And so when you do that, again, you're not thinking about saving because it's on automation. So again, if you were to rely on yourself to do it, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? And I share that all the time because I think you and I talked about this on the past, and I shared it on my Instagram page that I was able to save close to $100,000 in cash because of this automation process, right? So the things I share are factual and they actually work. I'm not going to tell your audience, my audience, or some of my clients things that have not traditionally worked, right? So when you set it up, automation, you're just doing it automatically.
All right. Now, you know, somebody out here just said to herself, but Keishan, I don't have enough money to save. I'm not making enough money. I can't afford to save, right? What advice do you give about that? One, two, do you have a certain percentage that you recommend people save and then put it into that online savings account?
Yeah. So I think the reality of it is, especially during this pandemic, people may come to the realization, as you said, they might not have the ability to save, right? But before you completely rule that out, you want to look at your budget to see, again, if you have the opportunity to do so. And so once you do that budget and that budget says, you know what, you have X, Y, and Z available, it is up to you to say, I'm going to start putting a little bit aside, right? So I think for those who are saying that they absolutely don't have anything to save, first start off with your budget to see if you can do it. And then the percentage that you want to put aside, you know, start off small, put away 10% of that, right? Or put half of that aside. You know, it all depends on how much you actually have available and what your goal is. A lot of the things that I say is not very cookie cutter, you know, it's not one size fit all, you know. everybody's situation is different. So someone who has, let's say $500 left over each month, or $200 or $100, you might be able to put that whole money aside, into your savings, or you may only be able to put about 50% of it or 10%. You want to know what your ultimate goal is, what you're saving for, and come up with a strategic plan that makes sense to say, okay, I'm gonna put 10%, and by the end of the year, I'll have my goal. So
makes all the sense in the world to me. Now, we referenced this budgeting thing, Keishan. Now, how in the name of the Lord our God would I start budgeting if I've never had? Like, is there an app I should use? One, right? How? And then two, what are maybe some unnecessary things that I can like eliminate from my budget so that I can have more money to save? Like, what are those key things that you like, girl, you don't need you don't need that in your budget this month. Like, so let's talk about that budgeting thing.
Yeah, so I think one of the main thing I'm gonna start off with saying is that individuals need to stop writing lifestyle checks that their bank accounts can't catch, right? So stop going out there buying all of the expensive things, trying to keep up with people who are not even checking for you, right? So people need to act their wage, right? So if your wages are on, a $200 budget, don't go out there and play yourself and buy things that are outside of your budget, right? Because that's going to continue to perpetuate that poverty mindset, that living from paycheck to paycheck psychology. You just shift the way you're thinking so that you can propel yourself to optimum success, right? So when it comes to your budget, right, everybody, again, is cookie cutter is not what I'm into. You have to figure out what works for you. So some suggestions would be, I'm old school, right? I like a pen and a paper. I would write down how much income I have coming in. And then in addition to that, I'll write down my expenses. That's how I would pretty much do a budget. Or on my website, I actually have a free Excel-based budget sheet where you put in your information, your expenses, and then it populates everything for you, right? So your expenses should be based on your needs, not your wants, right? So everything that is necessary for you to survive, food, water, shelter, all of those things would be considered your daily functionalities to survive. I strongly believe there is nothing wrong with looking good and putting money aside for your upkeep, right? Get your hair done, get your nails done, but do it within reasoning. You don't want your biggest line item on your budget to be $500 to get your hair done. And I've had clients that have had close to $1,000 each month on personal upkeep.
Wow.
That's crazy, right?
Wow.
And again, self-care is important, and I will never, ever, ever tell someone not to, look good, or because it, especially during this time, we need something to uplift our spirits.
Right.
However, you want to do it within moderation. A lot of people don't understand the concept of delayed gratification, right?
Say that again.
Delayed gratification. You delaying a thing will set you up for, again, optimal success in the future. I was able to do amazing things because of delayed gratification, and everything started with a budget. So apps are good, but I think sometimes you need to get down and dirty and write things down on a sheet of paper so you actually see what's coming in and what's going out.
That's, girl, you said it right there. Now, because it's in 2020 and so many people are now like on unemployment and figuring and getting other, whatever help that's needed out there. Maybe somebody who's on unemployment may feel like, damn, I don't even have, the money to save or anything. Do you suggest saving and having a budget on your unemployment, income?
We are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is an act, not a habit. If you apply greatness to the small things that you're doing now, once God blesses you with more, then it's automatic. Like you don't have to go into learning because you already know how to master it at the little stage that you are on. So if you are on unemployment or you're not getting steady income, you might be, a 1099 worker where your income isn't steady, but you're getting something in every month or, every couple of weeks. You want to put into practice the small things, because when you're blessed with that great abundance, again, it's automatic.
I love it. And I love it because that's the reality of where we are right now. Incomes are fluctuating. Some people, 1 month you have the job, you see that now they're closing things down again. So it's the truth of the matter that we're going to have to be aggressive on how we're saving and how we're making sure that like we said, we have those basic essentials. Now, girl, we're going to go talking about credit now. Child, honey, child, we're going to talk about some credit. Now, credit is a worry that many of us have regards to financial literacy and good finance habits. And literally, Keishan, if it wasn't for my deliberate research on credit, I wouldn't know anything about how to establish good credit. Everybody tells you need to make sure you have good credit, but nobody tells you how to do that, right? So what are some tips that you can give to our audience on maintaining good credit, building good credit, and also, maybe coming out of the hole and fixing some bad credit? Yeah.
So maintaining, and so I'm going to leverage back on you. So once I finish each point, I want you to tell me the other thing, right? So in regards to maintaining good credit, I think what people need to realize when really tackling, how to start the process of getting your credit on good terms, the first step people need to do is they need to know what their credit score is. So everybody wants to have great credit, but I've done a lot of polls with my clients and they don't even know what their credit score is. Wow. So once you figure out what your credit score is on freecreditkarma.com, creditkarma.com, you can get it for free. You figure out what your score is, and the way you maintain that is the number one thing I tell people, and this is how I was able to achieve 814 credit score, is because I kept my utilization low, right? Wow. So your credit utilization pretty much is saying, if I give you $10,000 of a credit, how much of that credit you're actually using, right? So the rule of thumb is they say you're only supposed to spend 30% of that. But what I tell my clients and what I do is I only spend 10% of that, right? And by me only spending 10% of that, it does one of two things. One, it gets me into a position where I know each and every month that my bill is going to be paid off in full because I don't have a super high utilization, right? So there was a time when I was on maternity leave for 7 months. I was paid 3 months of maternity leave, and then the remaining 4 months I had to fend for myself, right? My bills got paid each and every month because my utilization on my credit cards were so low, right? And even when transitioning from working for an accounting firm to being an entrepreneur, I had to maintain keeping my credit card bills extremely low. So in order to maintain a great credit score, you want to keep your credit utilization low. Just because they say you have $10,000 doesn't mean you need to spend $10,000, right? So that's number one. Now, the other thing you said, how do you build it?
Yeah, let's say you realize you don't have any credit usage and you're like, okay, now I need to build credit. How would I go about building my credit?
So you get something like a secure credit card where you actually put money on a card and it's your own money. So what happens is that it's automatically secured using your money. You put the money on the card, and what happens is that every time you get to use that credit card, it's like you're borrowing money from yourself and then you're paying yourself back, right? So the creditors are, at the time, the creditors might not think you're trustworthy because you haven't established credit yet. And this is the first step in actually securing credit, is by one, reaching out to a bank or reaching out to another institution to see if you can set up something called a secure credit line. So that's one way to potentially go into that area.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So I got to secure credit lines, get it together.
Yeah.
Now, Keishan, what if my credit score is a 2? Like it's just a 2. Like it's not even a 5 anything. And I have bad credit for whatever reasons, maybe student loan debts, credit cards, job loss, and I had to live off my credit cards, whatever. My credit score is shot.
Yeah.
How do I now go about rebuilding my credit?
So how you go about rebuilding it, the first thing that people, again, it's knowing what your credit history is all about. Knowing what each bucket, because your credit score is made up of 5 categories, right? So you want to know specifically where do you stand in each category, right? So in one category, your credit utilization, you could probably have a bad score in that area, or you may have too many hard inquiries on your account. So you want to look at specifically what areas do you have the most issues and try to tackle that, right? If you have been sent to collections, a couple of times, you want to work to have the discrepancies on your account taken off. You want to make sure you're paying down whatever items you have in collections off, because those things will maintain on your credit score and continue to bring them down. So again, the first thing that everyone needs to do is specifically look at what areas on your credit report or on your credit score are extremely low and target those to see ways that you can increase it.
That's good. Come on, Keishan, with the word on how to get the credit together. And just to share a little bit, and you said going from full-time income to entrepreneur, right? And I'll be full disclosure that income wasn't looking right for a certain amount of time. And I had to, when I did delete to become an entrepreneur, I was living off of savings, and then that went out and I started living off of credit. And that negatively affected my credit score because I knew about this credit utilization and I was obviously spending a lot more than usual. And once I made it my effort to pay those down because of the credit utilization, I saw my score literally go up 100 points in a month. Like I was like, oh, okay, so this is true. Like I was really looking at on my credit report what those negative remarks were. And I was like, okay, we're going to fix that. Now, we talked about credit, and one of the things that affects our credit is student loans, right? So we do, Embrace Her Legacy. We got programs for young girls, young women. Now, what advice do you give to about to be college student or college students in regards to student loan debt? Like maybe, and I'm gonna give you a specific scenario. Let's call her Samantha. Little Samantha gets an acceptance to her dream school, but her financial aid package is, less than sufficient. And in order for her to go to her dream school, Samantha now is going to have to take out let's say at the end, she's going to come out with $100,000 in debt, but she really wants to go to said dream school. What advice do you give to her?
All right, Samantha. So I think the first thing that each young person needs to do, they need to really look at the reason why they are going to that particular school, right? So we went to Hofstra University,
yes,
a private institution that is crazy expensive, right? We were able to get scholarships to go there. However, there were still amounts that we needed to pay upon graduation or whatever, right? Each semester. So when considering the school to go to, whether or not to take out that loan, you want to say to yourself, does it make sense if I go to this college, staying in state? Does it make sense for me to stay in state because the fees might be smaller as opposed to me going to a completely different state and paying a high amount? Mm-hmm. In addition to that, you also want to take into consideration your major. Like, is my major, me going to that school, going to put me in a better position? Can I go to a CUNY or a SUNY school as opposed to going to a private institution? So when thinking about overall big picture, your student loan, you want to really look at, okay, what college will give me the best opportunities and not cost an arm and a leg? Because the fact of the matter is, people are graduating from colleges with $90,000 in debt and getting a $30,000 a year job, which is absolutely ridiculous. So in this day and age, you just have to be very, very mindful and say to yourself, is my education worth this $100,000 bill once I'm done? And I know it's a hard pill to swallow because we want to go where we want to go, right? Mm-hmm. My father told me I had only Hofstra University, St. John's, and Nassau Community College. I wanted to go to Hampton in Virginia. Mm-hmm. But if I went there, then I probably would have paid so much because I would have been considered an out-of-state student. So again, you want to look at, the cost versus the reward.
I love that. The cost versus the reward, man. And we were lucky enough that we were in our state. So we were able to get, through programs, through NOAA, through whatever, we were able to get these help. But, we still had some debt to cover too, even after. But man, my bill was a lot cheaper. When I saw my undergrad bill, I was like, oh, okay, we can pay this off. Now, let's talk about life after college now. So now Samantha is now graduating college. And let me tell you something Keishan did. At 24, she bought her first home. So when I say Keishan been out here getting her money been together since day one, since day one. Now Samantha wants to buy her first home, right? And all we ever know about buying a home, Keishan, is like they say that you need good credit. Besides good credit, what are some initial steps that you would give to Samantha or any woman interested in buying her first home?
So I think preparation, poor planning prevents proper performances, right? So in order for a person to really buy that home, they have to prepare for the home. And what that means is, okay, you might have good credit or you may be getting your credit together, but do you have enough money in the bank to put down that down payment for your home, right? So do you have 20% of whatever the property value of the house is to put down? Those are the things that people need to take into consideration. It's amazing to see how people are shifting their mindset to want to be homeowners, right? Whether it's them buying a condo or them buying the rental property or whatever it is, it's amazing. But the first thing they need to say to themselves is, can I afford to do it? Do I have enough money in the bank to take care of that 20% down payment, right? And so let's say they do have the 20% down payment to put down, right? That's great. Do you have enough money coming in the event that an emergency may come out, right? So the first year that I was a homeowner, the boiler went. So that was thousands of dollars to get paid, to get fixed, right? Wow. So if I only had enough money for the down payment, and not for all of these emergencies that would potentially come up, because I say it all the time, emergencies don't make appointment. What would I have done? Would I had no heat because now I don't have a boiler? So again, what you want to take into consideration, all homeowners or individuals who are thinking about doing it, you want to make sure you have some money put aside, some extra cushion. Once you have good credit, that's great. You want to make sure in addition to that, you get someone to appraise your house. It's being appraised and see what's going on. You want to make sure whatever you're getting into, it's of great value. So those are the things that I would suggest Samantha or anyone else doing.
Now, you're also the tax queen, right? And a lot of us don't know. A lot of us who aren't or never been homeowners don't know that you got to pay something called property taxes on your home. Can you share your face? You look like you felt it, like you've had to write that check a few times. Sis. Share with just our audience a little bit more about what property tax is and how one should consider property tax as part of the home buying parcel, like your option. Like it's like, okay, you want to consider that too
Yes,
when you're out here looking for a house.
Yes. So that is a great question. And it's interesting because a lot of people would ask me questions about, credit, buying a home, but a lot of people don't ask that question, right? So a couple of years ago, individuals who purchase a home, if their property taxes were $50,000, they were able to deduct that on their tax return as to reduce their income, right? So back in the days, that was one of the incentives of getting a home. You get that tax write-off, right? So whenever you own a property, you have to pay taxes on that property. It's sort of like thinking of income. Anytime you have income from your job, your W-2 or your entrepreneur, you have to pay taxes on that money. Similarly, it's the same thing when you have a home. You have to pay property tax. There were new legislations and the tax law changed that now says that if a person owns a property, they can only deduct $10,000 worth of taxes, right?
What?
Okay. The year this went into effect, my tax refund used to be a substantial amount, right? Now, there's a lot of conversation about whether getting a refund check at the end of the year is good or not. That's a whole other conversation, and maybe I can come on for a tax segment. But back in the days, I used to get a substantial amount of money. All of a sudden, now I don't get that money anymore. Like I'm only limited to $10,000. So if I paid $20,000 in property taxes, they're only going to give me $10,000 as a deduction, right? So for individuals who are looking to purchase a home right now, you want to say, what state do I want to live in? Because this $10,000 property tax is across the board, right? So you want to think, or except for those states where you don't have to pay, income tax. But you need to take into consideration, New York is a state that has really high property taxes, right? Do you want to buy a home in New York when you can only deduct $10,000 of property tax when your property taxes are like $20,000, $15,000? So you want to take that into consideration. Maybe I'll buy a home in Pennsylvania where it could be, a little bit inexpensive, or maybe Georgia. Everybody is moving down south. Maybe that's something that you want to consider when it comes to property tax, because you're not going to get the full deduction that you used to get, a couple of years ago.
So. Look at that. I had no idea that's first of all, I didn't know you could deduct it first. Now I'm like, what? And you can only deduct $10,000. Now we use in terms like deductible, and we're talking about taxes. We're gonna go into taxes. So we know January 1st is around the corner. It's literally a couple weeks away, right? And everybody's gonna go into tax refund season. Okay. And we talked about
I really cannot believe this year is about to be over.
This is the slowest, shortest year known to mankind. Like, it's like, it went by so fast, slow. Like, it's so crazy, right? So fast, slow. Now, we about to get into tax season. This is Keishan's most, busiest season, right? How, or what are some tricks we can do legally to make sure that we getting the most back from Uncle Sam?
What are some tricks? Okay, so what are some tax saving tricks?
Yeah, like how can I get the most? How can I make sure I'm deducting everything? Like if I tithed at the church, if I gave my coat to the coats people, what are the ways that people are probably missing things that they can deduct, and they can make sure that they're maximizing that refund? And also explain to people what a tax deductible, what does that mean? Because some people probably doesn't even know what that means.
Okay. So the way that people can optimize their tax refund in 2020 is by having a side business. Let me say for the people in the back, if you are selling anything where you are generating income, that is a business. And a lot of people think that because they didn't go through the LLC process that they don't have a business. That is a huge misconception. If you are in the business of making money, you got a business, right? So a lot of people miss out on so many deductions on their tax return because they don't realize that point, right? So things like your cell phone, you get to deduct on your tax return as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. As a W-2 employee, you are not able to deduct that. But if you have your own business, you can write off a percentage of your cell phone because you're using your cell phone, to engage in conversations with your customers. So that's why a lot of people miss out on savings, because they don't consider their side hustle to actually be a business, when in actuality, it's full throttle. Like you have clients, you're getting a steady stream of income. A lot of people missed out on, the grants that were given through the stimulus process, because they didn't register their business, or they didn't do any kind of paperwork to say that they actually had a business. They didn't fill out a Schedule C or anything like that. They missed out on so many great free money from Congress because they didn't set up their business in such a way that really showed that they had a business, right? A lot of times we just want to keep our money for ourselves. We don't want to let Uncle Sam know about that money, which I completely understand. But you could be missing out on so many deductions because you're not utilizing the fact that the tax laws were not created for W-2 employees. They were not created for people who work for someone else. Tax laws were created for business owners. So if you have a business, this is the time for you to get your ducks in order, because you can't take any deductions after 12/31/2020 to on your tax return for next year. So you got to make sure all of the deductions that you have, or you're going to accumulate right now, you want to make sure that you have them in order, because when your tax returns are filed on April 15th, you can probably have a really great deduction, right? And you can get a high refund. I think where the problem comes in also is that people are not having conversations with their accountant, right? So there's a big distinction between tax planning and tax preparation. Tax planning is what you do right now. This is what tax planning is 2020. People should be meeting with their accountants, right? To figure out ways that they can maximize their deduction. Because a lot of people just wait until April 15th to file their tax returns, and then they realize they have $1,000 tax bill to the IRS, or a smaller refund because they didn't take advantage of certain thing out there. So if you got a business, especially I'm telling you, I did some research, and it said that 1 in every 3 individuals are business owners. So me, you, and Samantha, right? Out of the 3 of us, so 1 of us is an entrepreneur, and 2 of us are,
right?
You and I, right? So imagine so many individuals out there are not tapping in. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So many individuals are not really realizing that the way to maximize your deductions are to have a business. Right?
Girl,
look at Donald.
Look.
Now.
No. Imagine that. Now, you said something, and I know what you meant because I'm a business owner, so I know what this form is. But people who don't know about, their tax deductibles when it comes to their business, whether you selling hats, earrings, doing people's nails, whatever you're doing, right? You said a Schedule C form. And I always tell people, like, make sure you file your Schedule C form with your taxes, because that's where you That's where you put in your tax deductibles from your business, right? Can you share with people what a Schedule C form is and why it's important? How do you get it? Why that's part of your taxes as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so as an entrepreneur, so there are multiple ways for individuals to pretty much deduct their expenses on their tax returns. So either you are a Schedule C filer, which means that you are a sole proprietor, which any income or expense that you have, you get to deduct them on your individual return because you are the only owner of your business. I wish this person will stop messaging me. Jeez. I'm sorry. So, so if you are a Schedule C filer, again, you are sole proprietor, right? Now, if you are someone who has a corporation, then you have to fill out a completely different business tax return, right? But if you are the only owner of your business, you file it on your individual return. And again, this Schedule C it accounts for your income and your expenses, right? So any income that you made, any expenses that you have, if you bought a new laptop, you get to deduct it on your tax return. If you have a vehicle that you drive for your business, you could potentially write that vehicle off on your tax return. Like there are so many things that people don't realize they can deduct when they have a business, but that form that you mentioned, the Schedule C, is where you put everything at.
Awesome. And now you also talked about accountants. Like, how would I even go about finding an accountant? Like, if I'm interested in getting this together.
Okay, so first of all, if you need an accountant, reach out to me again, because I've been doing this for decades, close to 2 decades, right? So it's amazing how I think one of the main things that people need to look into when getting an accountant is this accountant acting on your behalf, right? Does this accountant have the best interests in mind for you? And I think that's where a lot of misconception comes in when people are trying to find accountants, because you can easily go to H&R Block, do TurboTax or whatever it is to prepare your tax return. But there comes a point where you need to pay for value, because the value that you are paying for an accountant, for an attorney, for someone who is in that area is going to help you to maximize the success of your business. And one of the great things about any accounting fees, if you have a business, it's 100% deductible on your tax return, right? So if your accounting is charging you X, Y, and Z, you get to write that off as expense, right? So one of the things that you want to look in when considering an accountant is this accountant working on my behalf? Do I have an accountant like Donald Trump's accountant, right? Am I allowing, is he making my taxes as small as possible? Listen, I do not, like, Donald Trump is not on my list of nice people that I want to engage in conversation with. I'll just leave it like that, to be politically correct. Right?
Be politically correct, girl. And I think a lot of us share that same sentiment.
So one of the things about this individual, right, is that he has people working on his behalf to ensure that he is not paying the true amount of taxes that he probably owes. And they're not doing it deceptively. They're using the tax code. So people at H&R Block, no shade to them, but they don't know the tax code like that. They take a class or a training to get the job, and then they prepare tax returns. I went to school to be an accountant. I know certain tax laws that will benefit individuals, especially small business owners, so that they can have the refund at the end of the year. So they're not paying as much money in taxes as they would initially be paying. But it's all about the tax code.
Come on, Keishan. She said, come hire me. And we're going to get to that. We're going to show the people how to come work with you, honey. Now, one thing I love about Keishan and what you do is, like, sis loves to travel on a budget. Like, you, every time I look up at your Instagram, I'm like, where is Keishan now? Now, I know you just came back from Aruba, right? All right. So let's talk about traveling. How can I or anybody listening become this world traveler that you are on a budget though?
So the main thing, it all goes back to what we started the conversation off with initially, which is having a budget, right? You can't really know where you're going unless you know what you have started with, right? Mm-hmm. So when I always consider traveling, because that's something that I love to do, and I was awarded the opportunity to do so because I delayed spending my money on other things, right? So instead of me buying an expensive car, I drove around my Honda for 10 years. But during that time, I went to Africa, I went to Israel, I went to Spain, Italy, France. I've been to all of these places because I put my money in things, meaning experiences, versus me putting my money in, things that would depreciate. And I did all of that on a budget by utilizing certain websites, right? Cheapcaribbean.com, right? You can buy packages that they have available for really, really inexpensive prices. You can get your hotel and your flight for probably $500, $600, round trip. So it's really you doing the research, you looking, saying to yourself how much you can actually spend, buying your air flight tickets well in advance, right? So there are flights I'm considering maybe going to Jamaica, right? Before the world actually shut down, mm-hmm. There are flights to Jamaica that are $125 to Jamaica.
Wow.
That's really inexpensive, right? Traveling even domestically, going to California, round trip, tickets were $214, right? So right now it's a very, it's bad times, but if you are looking to take advantage of going away, like if you look on your timeline, everybody is going to Tulum. Like everybody in Bahama was in Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because flights were really inexpensive. And the hotels out there probably were too. So you just want to say to yourself, how much are you willing to pay? And then once you do that, you work backwards. How much can I afford to do it? $500, you can still enjoy a nice trip. I went to Colombia for a week and spent less than $1,000 for a week. And that was excursions, 3 excursions, food, souvenirs, and I didn't stay in an all-inclusive hotel. We stayed in an Airbnb, and we had to buy food to prepare. And all of that was less than $1,000.
Look at that.
It's possible.
Wow. So I told you, Keisha know how to live. She know how to maximize her coin. Okay. You know how to maximize your coin. And speaking of maximizing coins, so I started
something also, right? And even let's say you decide to travel, you can potentially utilize that as a business expense. But that's another conversation. Girl.
How?
I'm crazy. I can't look at you. How?
I'm like, how, girl? How?
I'll just leave this small tidbit because I'm actually creating a course on how to deduct your business expense. But because you and I are cool, I will share a little bit of it, right? So you want to just make sure that when you're traveling, that you try to set up some kind of meeting down there, right? That's the kicker. You want to set up a meeting so that you can actually deduct some or all of your trip as a business deduction. But again, I'll go more in depth in the training that I'm going to be doing, but that is one of the kickers. And there's more detail into it besides that, but that's how you're able to deduct a business trip to Aruba. And girl, Aruba will be deducted.
I love it. You spilling the good tea on us. That is good. So we talked about maximizing a coin, and one of the ways to do that is investing. And this year, I'm so proud of myself. I'm investing straight into the stock market of using different apps. Now, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in starting to invest?
Oh man, that's a great question. That is a great question. That is the way that you build true wealth, right?
Wow.
Saving and budgeting is great because it is the catalyst for something bigger, right? But people need to realize that in order for you to start investing, you want to make sure you have your savings and your budgeting intact. But let's say you have all of that together and you're starting to invest, it opens up the doors for you to pull money out to buy that first home, right? And so this kind of investing that we're talking about is not through your 401k. This is just individual investing, right? You investing in the stock market is amazing because it opens up the doors for you to build true wealth, right? You can't save yourself to wealth. You have to invest yourself to wealth. You have to buy rental properties to produce wealth. So what you're doing is amazing. And how people can actually start doing that is start to invest in things that you use every single day. Everybody loves Target. Everybody loves Target.
That's where I got this hat from, sis.
I love it. Why aren't, well, not you, but if you purchase something from a particular, company, why don't you also own stock in that? I have an Apple phone. I own Apple stocks. My son is 15 months old. He owns Apple stock. He also owns Tesla. He also owns rental real estate properties by way of stock investing. A lot of people don't realize that you can invest in real estate through investing in the stock market, through something called a REIT, which is, yes, girl. Yeah, yes. REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust, REIT, right? So let's get into it. Let's get into
Girl,
it.
let me get more of this coin, honey. Yes. Okay.
So REITs are pretty much, in order for you to be considered a REIT, a company would need to pay out the earnings that they receive to their shareholders, right? So REITs are pretty much companies that invest in rental real estate, right? Mm-hmm. So remember, we went to Hofstra. Mm-hmm. The big mall out here is Roosevelt Film Mall. That mall is owned by a company that is called Simon Property Group, right? They are all over the place. They're not just in New York, but they reside in multiple states, right? So what happens is when a store like H&M or Zara picks up residency in that particular mall, they pay to Simon Property Group, right? Which is the owner of that particular building, right? So as an owner or an investor in Simon Property Group, in order for them to maintain their status as a real estate investment trust, they have to pay out 90% of their earnings to their shareholders, right? By way of something called a dividend, right? So if you get a dividend, that means the company does well. They're giving you money each quarter just because, right? So that's something that we want to aspire to get, because over time, that $5 that you're getting can turn into $15 or $20. And over time, your dividend income starts to increase, right? So when investing in the stock market by way of REITs, you're investing in rental real estate. And one of the double benefits about that is you're an owner of that property and they are paying you because they are in the business of paying out dividends, right? So my son, 15 months, gets dividend income because he's invested in real estate investment trust property, right? And in my course that I have this investing during the quarantine course where I go in detail specifically about that, right? So Amazon was looking at one point to pretty much take up residency in the old Sears buildings that were around, right? So all of the Sears are out of business. Imagine if Amazon now took up residency inside of a Sears. That means instead of us getting our packages in 2 days with Amazon Prime, we could probably get them in a couple of hours, because every town pretty much has a Sears. And guess who owns Sears, or the building? Mm-hmm. Simon Property Group. So what that means is if a conglomerate like Amazon takes up residency in a property like Sears, guess what's going to happen to that stock for SPG, which is Simon Property? It's going to go up, right? Because Amazon, everybody loves Amazon, right? I own one Amazon stock.
Girl.
Amazon stock is at $3,500. I got one Amazon stock when it was $1,500, and I was scared to get it because I'm like, I'm not paying $1,500 for no one stock. But I have so much more from holding that stock over the years. It has doubled. It has already paid for itself, right? But I share all of that to say, when investing in, the rental real estate realm and in property, if you can't afford to buy that regular property, you can invest in property by way of the stock market by something called REITs. When we get off, I want you to look into REITs.
I'm already like, I'm asking the questions for the people because I know it's not just me. Because how would I now get to them? Because you mentioned the companies. Because full disclosure, and they're not giving me a check to say this, but I'm just going to help the people. I use Robinhood to invest straight into the stock market. And one of the things I love is that you can start with a minimal amount of money. Like I started playing around with like $50 and then I started like really getting into it, right? So that's what I use. So how would I get to these companies that they do this? Like, is that something I would go through Robinhood? Is that a separate?
No. It's anything that's traded on the stock market, you can pretty much buy through Robinhood or TD Ameritrade. There's certain restriction. There's certain stocks that you might not be able to buy, like the cannabis stocks. Not all cannabis stocks you can buy on Robinhood. You might have to buy them on, TD Ameritrade. But for the most part, REITs, and at the end of this, look up SPG, that is the ticker symbol. You can pretty much buy that on Robinhood.
I'm going to look it up. I was about to look it up right now.
SPG.
SPG. Well, who's gonna get a share today? Like, I'm gonna see what it's looking like, because thank you so much. Keishan, like, look at this. This is information that we don't know. I'm thinking I need to have millions of dollars to start renting and investing in real estate. And she said, no, there's ways that you can do about it now. And full disclosure, when Apple was about to do their 4-1 split, I got a text from Keishan at 6:30 in the morning. And you were like, Apple's about to do the split. And now, like, the Apple stock is now only like $100 and something a share because they did the split. And again, we have to be able to talk to each other about this. I have a chat group on my Instagram with me and my cousins because we were talking about this, and now we shoot out like, y'all might want to invest in this, y'all might want to get 10 shares of this. But this is so important to have these type of conversations, because you said it, you don't save yourself to wealth, you invest yourself to wealth. And so many of us don't come from money, and we don't know. We think, okay, I'm gonna get a good job, I'm gonna have a good income, and that's it. Saving and budgeting is not it. Now we talking about jobs, honey. So just so that I'm gonna say, 2020 has shown us that you cannot rely on one source of income. Can you please share with the people benefits of having multiple income streams, and also some income streams that they may not be tapping into, like investing into the stock market?
So one of the importance about having a side hustle or having this additional income on the side is, like, you hit the nail on the head when you said income is not guaranteed in this season. Right? It's not guaranteed. And I like to speak of a place of transparency. When transitioning from working to being your own boss, it's easy to have the idea of that continuous income. I know I'm getting paid every 2 weeks. I don't have anything to worry about. But what happens when you lose your job? A lot of people are one paycheck away from being homeless. Right? Yeah. So it's extremely important to think of multiple streams of income. What are you good at? What are you good at, right? If you are an accountant like myself, why not do tax returns on the side to, generate additional money. If you are creative and have good ideas with creating t-shirts, create a t-shirt line, right? Jewelry. People are buying jewelry, wholesaling, and they're selling it. Whatever you are good at, tap into that. There's so much power in who we are as individuals, and I don't think we fully realize and we don't fully tap into it. There's a saying that says, what are you going to do between your start date and your end date? The dash in between the year you was born and the day that you are no longer on this earth, what are you going to do? People need to get in tune with optimizing who they are and tapping into other areas where they can produce more income, right? Even if you're doing DoorDash or, all the other things that potentially generate money. Listen, you can deduct your gas from DoorDash, right? Some of the expenses for your vehicle, you get to deduct from doing DoorDash or Uber, all of these things. People don't realize this stuff. And that's why I say it's important to have a dope accountant, because TurboTax is not going to tell that when you do it by yourself. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation. So I'm going to ask you one more question because I want to be respectful of your time. We asked our audience about wanting to learn about money, and people were like, yeah, I want to learn. But it's also that there's just not enough money out there, or I don't make enough money. It's overall like a lack of abundance, a poverty type mindset that you mentioned at the beginning. Can you just share words of encouragement on what changes need to happen internally and around thinking and believing in order to start to build financial wealth?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, it's the psychology of the thing, right? So people need to shift the trajectory of the way they think, because the way you think will show up in your life. So if you're constantly saying, I don't have enough money, I'm broke, guess what? That's going to start to manifest in your life, right? So it starts with the way you think, right? You want to change the way you think, because ultimately that's going to show up in your life, right? In addition to that, a lot of people may feel as if they don't have enough, or they can't invest in themselves, though in certain areas. But what I realize, people will invest in what they find value in, right? So this is gonna hurt. Buying that $500 weave is what a lot of people find interest in. Buying that $500 PS5 that's out now, people find value in that, right? Those same people who are doing those things that may feel as though they're living from paycheck to paycheck, my question to them is, can you also afford to invest in yourself, to make yourself better, to invest in the stock market, to invest in learning more about how you can change your relationship with money? Sometimes it takes you getting a coach, financial coach. You might have to invest in being poured into, right? I recently had to get a trainer because I couldn't do it on my own, right? I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to be fit, but it got to a point where I couldn't do it by myself. I couldn't do it on my own, right? So it had to take me looking into getting help somewhere else. So people need to change the way they think, encourage themselves. There are a lot of free resources out there, Google, Yahoo Finance, YouTube has so many things out there for individuals to tap into. So they just do their research and see whatever it is that they're looking to accomplish, learning more about investing. If they can't financially do it, I would say do your Googles. But then if you can afford to get that $500 weave and that $500 PS5, then you can afford to pay to have someone teach you how to be better with your finances.
Oh, that is amazing. Now, speaking of having somebody come teach us, I got to ask you, Miss Keishan, how can we support you What are your social media handles? How can the people hire you, like contact you, find your website? What projects, courses do you have coming up that you want to share that maybe somebody can register for? Like, tell us everything.
So I'm actually rolling out a business course in addition to how can I deduct my, vacation as a business expense on Black Friday. So I'll have everything available at that time. People can follow me on social media, the_legacy_lady. People can also reach out to me at www.KeishanRowe.com, where they can find all of the free information that I have up there. I have a newsletter they can sign up for. Again, I have this course called Investing During the Quarantine. It shows you the fundamentals of investing. Everybody wants to make money, but in order for you to make money, you have to understand so that you won't lose your money. So the course teaches you and gives you an understanding of how can I actually invest in the stock market by something like an ETF. Like instead of me buying Amazon that is like $3,000, I can buy it into an ETF that has Amazon, Tesla, and all of these other stocks in it. So yeah, they reach out to me, send me an email, DM me, slides in my DMs. Only if it's about finances, because you say slide in my DM and then you get some messages just like
you get something else.
Excuse me, sir. That's not what I meant. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. So y'all can follow my girl Keishan Rowe at the_legacy_lady. You can go visit her website, KeishanRowe.com, to sign up for her courses, sign up for her newsletters, hit her up, and hire her to be your accountant. And tax season is coming. So y'all better book an appointment real quick, because she just showed us she said we could book, I can deduct that trip. And I'm low key trying to go away at the end of December. So I'm definitely going to be reaching out to Keisha like, all right, how do I do this? How do I do this? All right. Thank you so much, Keishan, for just sharing all your words of wisdom. I learned so much. I'm definitely going to look into everything about rental property, real estate investing, all that she said. I'm going to do that. Ladies, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, always be a woman who embraces her legacy. If you heard something you like, make sure that you subscribe. And make sure that you share this with all of your peoples. Let's make sure that we are building financial wealth and investing our way into a dope financial legacy. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please make sure to subscribe and visit embraceherlegacy.com to make a donation or sign up to become a part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Make sure you follow us at Embrace Her Legacy to get daily inspiration and join our movement. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're enough, you're worthy, and you're a phenomenal woman who embraces her legacy.